What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you? If your own stepmother tried to steal everything your father built and then forced you to marry a stranger to save your life? Alecia thought she knew what rock bottom looked like. She was wrong. Because sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who call you family. And sometimes the stranger you're forced to marry might be the only one standing between you and death. This is the story of Alecia Martinez, a 22-year-old heiress who discovered that her father's death was just the beginning of her nightmare. But what she didn't know was that her rescue would come from the most unexpected place, and that the man forced to marry her was hiding the biggest secret of all. Before we get into the story, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so as yet, and tell us where you are watching from. 6 months ago, David Martinez was the king of construction in Miami. His company, Martinez Holdings, built half the skyline. His daughter Alecia was his princess, studying business to one day take over the family empire. Then came the funeral. "I can't believe he's gone," Alecia whispered, clutching her stepmother Victoria's hand as they lowered her father's casket into the ground. Victoria Martinez squeezed back, her tears perfectly timed for the cameras. "We'll get through this together, sweetheart. Your father would want us to stay strong." But what Alecia couldn't see were the satisfied glances Victoria exchanged with her siblings across the cemetery. Marcus, the eldest, adjusted his expensive suit and checked his Rolex. Eleanor, cold as ice even in the Miami heat, smiled beneath her black veil, and Roberto, the youngest and most dangerous, cracked his knuckles like he was preparing for a fight. This wasn't a family mourning. This was a criminal organization celebrating a successful hit. 3 days later, the family gathered in the lawyer's office. Alecia sat in the front row, expecting to hear about her inheritance, her future, her father's wishes for the company they'd planned to run together. Instead, she heard words that shattered her world. "Due to recent amendments to Mr. Martinez's will," the lawyer announced, "all assets, including the family home and Martinez Holdings, are to be placed in trust, under the management of Mrs. Victoria Martinez." "What?" Alecia shot to her feet. "That's impossible. Dad and I discussed this. I was supposed to inherit—" "Sit down, dear." Victoria's voice was silk wrapped around steel. "Your father was unwell toward the end. He made these changes to protect you. You're so young, so inexperienced." Marcus leaned forward, his smile predatory. "Don't worry, little cousin. We'll take good care of everything." That night, Alecia found herself locked out of her father's study, the safe emptied, and her access to the company's accounts frozen. The family she thought would protect her had just stolen her entire life. 2 weeks later, Victoria called a family meeting. Alecia descended the grand staircase of the home she'd lived in her entire life, not knowing it would be the last time she'd call it home. "We've been patient with you, Alecia," Victoria began, her siblings flanking her like bodyguards. "But it's time to face reality. You're a liability to this family now." "A liability?" Alecia's voice cracked. "This is my home, my father's company." Eleanor laughed, the sound sharp as glass. "Your father is dead, little girl. We're in charge now." "Which brings us to our proposition," Marcus added, cracking his knuckles. "You have 2 choices: marriage or the streets." "Marriage?" Alecia's blood ran cold. "To whom?" Roberto produced a photograph. A man in a security uniform, dark hair, strong jaw, kind eyes. "John Rivera. He started working security at the company after your father's death. Nice guy. Poor, but nice." "You want me to marry a stranger? You want to have a roof over your head?" Victoria's mask finally slipped, revealing the monster beneath. "Because that's your choice, sweetheart. Marry him, and you get to stay in this family. Refuse, and you're on your own. No money, no home, no family. Nothing." Marcus stepped closer, and Alecia caught the bulge of a gun beneath his jacket. "And trust me, cousin, you don't want to be on your own in this world." "What would you do if you were Alecia? Would you marry a stranger?" The next morning, Alecia found herself in a small coffee shop downtown, waiting to meet the man she was supposed to marry. Her hands shook as she stirred her coffee, watching the door. When John Rivera walked in, she almost gasped. The photograph hadn't done him justice. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with warm brown eyes that seemed to see right through her fear. Alecia? His voice was gentle, concerned. I'm John. She nodded, unable to speak. He sat down across from her, his movements careful, non-threatening. I want you to know, I had no idea about this arrangement until yesterday. Marcus Martinez approached me at work and made the offer. Offer? Alecia found her voice. You mean threat? John's jaw tightened. I know what your step-family is capable of. I've seen how they operate at the company. What they're doing to you, it's not right. Then why agree to marry me? John met her eyes, and she saw something there that made her breath catch. Protection, determination. Because maybe, if I marry you, I can keep you safe. Maybe I can be the shield between you and them. The ceremony was a joke, a courthouse wedding with Marcus and Elena as witnesses, their smiles cold and satisfied. Victoria didn't even attend. You may kiss the bride, the judge announced. John looked at Alecia, searching her face, then he leaned in and pressed the gentlest kiss to her forehead instead. I promise you, he whispered, so quietly only she could hear, I will never hurt you, and I'll never let them hurt you either. As they signed the papers, Alecia noticed something strange. John's handwriting was educated, refined. His clothes were cheap, but his watch, barely visible beneath his sleeve, was expensive. Real expensive. Who was John Rivera, really? John's apartment was a small two-bedroom in a working-class neighborhood. Clean, sparse, but somehow temporary, like someone was camping rather than living. You can have the bedroom, John said, setting her single suitcase down. I'll take the couch. John, we're married. People can expect whatever they want. His voice was firm but kind. You didn't choose this, neither did I, but we're in it together now, and we're going to do this right. That first night, Alecia lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to John moving quietly in the living room. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe, protected. She didn't know that in the living room, John was making a phone call. It's done, he said quietly into an encrypted phone. She's safe. But they're moving faster than we thought. The family meeting is tomorrow night. On the other end of the line, a familiar voice responded, Stay close to her, John, and be ready. This is about to get dangerous. Over the next few weeks, Alecia and John settled into a strange but comfortable routine. He left early for his security job, she looked for work. Though no one would hire David Martinez's daughter, Victoria had made sure of that, and evenings they cooked dinner together. You know, Alecia said one night, watching John expertly prepare a gourmet meal, for a security guard, you have some pretty sophisticated tastes. John paused, then smiled. My grandmother was a chef. She taught me everything. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But it was a gentle lie, and Alecia found herself not minding the mystery. Tell me about your father, John said, setting a perfect plate in front of her. Alicia's eyes filled with tears. He was everything. Brilliant businessman, loving father. He built Martinez Holdings from nothing. We were going to run it together. She wiped her eyes. I still can't believe he's gone. John reached across the table and covered her hand with his. He sounds like an incredible man. He would have liked you, Alecia said, then blushed. I mean, if we had met under normal circumstances. Maybe we did, John said softly, and Alicia's heart skipped a beat. Everything changed on a Thursday night in October. Alecia was coming home from a job interview, unsuccessful of course, when she noticed the black SUV following her. Her blood ran cold. She'd seen that same SUV outside their apartment building for 3 days running. She ducked into an alley, heart pounding, and called John. Where are you? His voice was sharp with concern. Downtown near the... Get to the coffee shop where we first met. Now don't go home. 20 minutes later, John appeared in the coffee shop like an avenging angel. He scanned the room with the efficiency of a trained professional, then sat across from her. They're watching us, Alecia whispered. I know. John's hand found hers across the table. Alecia, there's something you need to know about your step-family. They're not just thieves. They're killers. What? Marcus Martinez doesn't just run your father's construction company. He runs a criminal network that spans 3 states. Money laundering, extortion, murder for hire. The company is just their front. Alecia felt the world tilt. How do you know all this? John's eyes were grave. Because I've been investigating them for months. That night, in the safety of their apartment, John showed Alecia files, photographs, evidence. A criminal empire that had been operating under her nose her entire life. Your stepmother isn't just greedy, John explained, spreading photos across their kitchen table. She's the head of a family crime syndicate. Marcus handles the muscle, Elena manages the money, Roberto does the dirty work. But why marry my father? Access, legitimacy. Your father's company was the perfect front for their operations. John's voice was grim, but David got suspicious, started asking questions. Alecia stared at a surveillance photo of Victoria meeting with known criminals. So they killed him. That's what we're trying to prove. John looked at her for a long moment, then made a decision that would change everything. Alecia, your father isn't dead. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? David Martinez faked his death when he discovered Victoria's plan to kill him. He's been in hiding, gathering evidence, building a case against them. That's impossible. I saw him die. I was at the hospital. You saw what he needed you to see. The only way to catch them was to make them think they'd won. An hour later, in a safe house across town, Alecia came face to face with her father. Papa, she whispered, not believing her eyes. David Martinez was thinner, grayer, but alive. So alive. My darling girl. They held each other and cried, months of grief and pain washing away in an instant. Why didn't you tell me? She sobbed. I thought you were dead. I thought they'd won. Because you had to sell it, David said gently. Your grief, your desperation, it had to be real for them to believe it. And because I needed them to make their move. The marriage, Alecia realized, looking between her father and John. You planned the marriage. John nodded. Your father knew they'd try to control you through marriage. We needed someone close to you who could protect you while gathering intelligence. So you've been lying to me this whole time? About this, yes. But not about everything. John's voice was soft, vulnerable. Not about caring for you. There's one more thing you need to know, David said, exchanging glances with John. More secrets. Alecia was overwhelmed. John took a deep breath. My real name is Jonathan Blackstone. I'm the CEO of Blackstone Security Enterprises. We're a private firm that specializes in taking down criminal organizations. Alecia stared at him. You're rich? Very. John smiled ruefully. The modest apartment, the security guard job, it was all cover. Your father hired my company to infiltrate Victoria's operation. So our marriage started as an assignment, John said quietly, but somewhere along the way it became real, at least for me. The plan was elegant and dangerous. While Victoria and her siblings believed they were consolidating power, David and John's team had been documenting every crime, every illegal transaction, every murder. We need them all together, David explained, one final gathering where they'll incriminate themselves completely. The annual board meeting, Alecia realized. They're announcing their expansion plans next week. Which is when we'll be waiting with the FBI, John added. The night of the meeting, Alecia wore a wire and walked into Martinez Holdings, her father's building, for the first time since the funeral. Her heart pounded as she faced Victoria and her criminal family. Well, well, Marcus sneered. Look who decided to visit. I want to make a deal, Alecia announced. I want in on the family business. The room fell silent. Marcus, Eleanor, Roberto and Victoria exchanged glances. What kind of deal? Victoria asked slowly, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. I've been married to that security guard for months. Living in poverty, working dead-end jobs, being treated like trash. Alecia let bitterness creep into her voice. I'm tired of being David Martinez's innocent little princess. I want what's mine. Roberto leaned forward, interested. And what exactly do you think is yours? My father built this empire, and you stole it from me. But maybe we can work together, instead of fighting each other. Eleanor laughed coldly. You think we're just going to welcome you with open arms, after all this time? I think you need me, Alecia said boldly. I'm still David Martinez's daughter. I still have legitimacy with the board, with the clients, with the banks. You've been running the business, but people are starting to ask questions. Marcus cracked his knuckles. What kind of questions? The kind that come when construction permits get approved too easily, when city contracts go to the same company over and over, when building inspectors suddenly stop being so thorough. Alecia met his eyes. People remember my father as honest. They trust the Martinez name. You need that trust. Victoria studied her stepdaughter carefully. And what would you want in return for lending us that legitimacy? 50% ownership of Martinez Holdings, full partnership in all business ventures, and the truth about what really happened to my father. The family exchanged more glances. Finally, Marcus spoke. You want the truth? Fine, your precious daddy wasn't the saint you thought he was. Marcus, Victoria warned. No, if she wants in, she needs to know everything. Marcus stood up, pacing. David Martinez was getting suspicious, started asking too many questions about our side operations, the money laundering through the construction projects, the protection rackets, the contract eliminations. Contract eliminations? Alicia's voice was barely a whisper. Elena smiled coldly. We don't just build buildings, little cousin. We remove obstacles, permanently. Roberto pulled out his phone, showing her photos. Competitors who tried to underbid us. City officials who wouldn't play ball. Former employees who got too chatty. He swiped through image after image of newspaper obituaries. All accidents, of course. Your father was going to expose everything, Victoria continued, her mask finally dropping completely. He found Roberto's files, discovered our client list. He was going to turn us all in. So you killed him, Alecia stated. We had no choice. Marcus exploded. He was going to destroy everything we'd built. The family, the business, our entire organization. It wasn't personal, Victoria said with fake sympathy. David just couldn't see the bigger picture. He was stuck in his old-fashioned morality. The heart attack was brilliant, though, Roberto bragged. Untraceable. Even the doctors believed it was natural. Stress from running such a large company, they said. Elena nodded approvingly. Roberto's specialty. He's eliminated 12 obstacles for our organization over the past 5 years. All natural causes. The old fool never saw it coming, Victoria laughed. Though I have to admit, the heart attack was almost too easy to fake. One little injection during his afternoon nap, and by evening he was gasping for air, clutching his chest, begging me to call an ambulance. Marcus grinned darkly. By the time the paramedics arrived, it was already over. Poor David Martinez, taken too soon by the stress of business. And now, Victoria continued, if you want to be part of this family, you need to understand. We don't just run a construction company, Alecia. We run an empire. And empires require difficult decisions. For the next hour, Victoria's family bragged about their crimes, detailed their future plans, and confessed to murders, including their attempt on David Martinez. Except he's not dead, Alecia said quietly. The room went silent. What did you say? Marcus's voice was deadly. The doors burst open, FBI agents flooded the room, and walking behind them, very much alive, was David Martinez. Hello, Victoria, he said. Miss me? The arrests were spectacular. The moment David Martinez walked through those doors, very much alive, the color drained from every face in the room. Victoria's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the shock that transformed her features. That's impossible, she stammered, backing away from the conference table. Marcus was the first to react with violence. You son of a... He lunged toward David, but FBI agents tackled him to the ground before he could take 2 steps. This is a setup. This is all a setup. Eleanor, always the coldest of the siblings, simply stared at David with pure hatred. How long? She asked quietly. How long have you been alive, watching us? Long enough, David replied, his voice steel, long enough to see exactly what kind of monsters you really are. But it was Roberto who provided the most dramatic reaction. The youngest Martinez sibling, the killer of the family, suddenly bolted for the emergency exit. Roberto, stop, an FBI agent shouted. Roberto crashed through the stairwell door, his expensive shoes echoing in the concrete space as he raced downward. 3 flights down, 2 flights, 1 flight. He burst through the ground floor exit only to find himself face to face with a wall of federal agents and police cars, their red and blue lights painting the Miami night in harsh colors. "Roberto Martinez," the lead agent called through a megaphone, "you're surrounded. Put your hands where we can see them." For a moment, Roberto stood frozen in the doorway, wild-eyed and desperate. Then he made one last fatal mistake. He reached for the gun beneath his jacket. "Gun!" someone shouted. In seconds, Roberto was on the ground, alive but handcuffed, his weapon skittering across the pavement. His escape attempt had lasted less than 3 minutes. Back upstairs, the remaining siblings watched through the conference room windows as their baby brother was loaded into a police car. 30 years, Marcus was muttering as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. 30 years we've been building this empire, and you destroy it all in one night. "We trusted you," Eleanor hissed at Alecia as she was led away. "Your family." "No," Alecia said firmly, standing beside her very much alive father. "You were never family. Family protects each other. Family doesn't murder for money." Victoria, the mastermind who had orchestrated it all, said nothing as they read her rights. But as she was escorted past David, she stopped and looked him directly in the eyes. "You think you've won," she whispered, her voice venomous. "This organization is bigger than just us. You have no idea what you've started." "Then I guess we'll have to finish it," David replied calmly. The criminal network they'd built over decades crumbled in a single night, but not without showing the true desperation of cornered predators. "It's over," David told his daughter as they watched the last of the handcuffed criminals being led away. "You're safe. You're home." "But what about—" Alecia looked around for John, but he was gone. She found him an hour later, standing in her father's office, staring out at the Miami skyline. "You're leaving," she said quietly. "The job is finished." He didn't turn around. "You don't need protection anymore." "What if I need you for other reasons?" Now he turned, hope flickering in his dark eyes. "What kind of reasons?" "The kind where a woman falls in love with her husband, even if he lied to her about Dot." "Not everything," John said, crossing to her. "I never lied about this." He kissed her then, properly this time, with all the passion and love that had been building between them for months. "I love you, Alecia Martinez," he whispered against her lips. "That was never an act." "I love you too, Jonathan Blackstone," she whispered back. "Now about that real wedding." The church was filled with flowers, friends and family, real family this time. Alecia stood at the back in a dress that cost more than their old apartment's yearly rent, her hand on her father's arm. "Ready, Princess?" David asked, tears in his eyes. "More than ready." At the altar, John waited in a tuxedo that actually fit his real station in life. When he saw her walking toward him, his face lit up with pure joy. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today to witness the renewal of vows between Jonathan and Alecia, who began their marriage as strangers and discovered it was always meant to be love." As they exchanged rings, real ones this time, chosen together, Alecia marveled at the journey that had brought them here. "I promise," John said, his voice carrying to every corner of the church, "to protect you, cherish you, and love you for all the days of my life. No more secrets, no more lies, just truth, trust, and love." "I promise," Alecia replied, her voice strong and clear, "to stand beside you through every adventure, every challenge, every joy. You were my guardian angel when I needed one most. Now you get to be my husband for real." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife for the second time, but the first time that counts, the church erupted in cheers. Later at the reception, David Martinez raised his glass. "To my daughter and son-in-law," he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom, "who proved that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the greatest deceptions. And sometimes the person you're forced to marry is exactly the person you were meant to find." As John and Alecia danced their first dance as a truly married couple, she looked up into his eyes. "So, Mr. Blackstone," she said with a smile, "any more secrets I should know about?" "Just one," he said, spinning her around. "I knew from the moment I saw you in that coffee shop that I was going to fall in love with you. The job was just an excuse." "Now that," Alecia laughed, pulling him closer, "is the best secret of all." But as they swayed to the music, Alecia felt a wave of dizziness. She pressed closer to John, breathing deeply. "Are you all right?" he whispered, concern immediate in his voice. "I think so," she said, though something felt different. 2 years after their real wedding, John and Alecia had settled into a beautiful life. They'd moved into a stunning home in Coral Gables. John had expanded Blackstone Security, and Alecia had taken her rightful place as co-CEO of Martinez Holdings alongside her father. But on a sunny Tuesday morning in March, their world changed forever. "John," Alecia called from the bathroom, her voice shaking with excitement and disbelief. "What is it?" John rushed in, finding his wife staring at a small plastic test. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, then louder, laughing through tears. "I'm pregnant." John swept her into his arms, spinning her around their master bathroom like it was a ballroom. "Are you sure?" "3 tests, sure," Alecia laughed, showing him the collection of positive results. "We're having a baby." At the 12-week ultrasound, the technician grew quiet, moving the wand carefully across Alecia's belly. "Is everything okay?" Alecia asked, squeezing John's hand. "Oh, everything's more than okay," the technician grinned. "You're having twins. 2 healthy baby boys." John's knees actually buckled. "Twins? Boys?" "Twin boys," Alecia repeated, staring at the screen where 2 little figures were clearly visible. "Oh my God, John. We're having twin boys." That night they called David with the news. "Twins," David shouted so loudly that Alecia had to hold the phone away from her ear. "My grandsons. This calls for a celebration." 9 months later, on a snowy December morning, David Martinez and Alecia Blackstone welcomed their sons into the world. "Meet your boys," the doctor announced, placing the first baby in Alecia's arms, then the second in John's. "They're perfect," John whispered, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his son. "Absolutely perfect." "What are their names?" David asked from the corner where he'd been pacing nervously for hours. Alecia and John exchanged glances. They'd kept the names secret, even from her father. "This is David Jonathan Blackstone," Alecia said, kissing the baby in her arms, named for his grandfather. David Martinez broke down completely, sobbing with joy. "And this," John said, holding up his son, "is Gabriel Martinez Blackstone, our guardian angel." As the family held their newest members, Alecia looked around the room at the people she loved most. Her father, alive and healthy. Her husband, the man who'd started as her protector and become her everything. And now their 2 sons, the perfect symbols of hope and new beginnings. "They're going to grow up knowing they're loved," she whispered to John, "really loved, by people who chose to be their family." "The best kind of family," John agreed, kissing her forehead. As our story comes to a close, let's remember the lessons Alecia and John's journey teaches us. Sometimes the darkest moments in our lives are preparing us for our greatest blessings. Alecia thought she'd lost everything, her father, her home, her future. But that loss led her to a love deeper than anything she could have imagined. In a world that sometimes seems full of people like Victoria Martinez, people who take, who lie, who hurt others for their own gain, be like John Rivera. Be the person who protects instead of exploits. Be the one who chooses love when others choose power. Because in the end, love always wins. Family always matters, and sometimes the person you're forced to marry is exactly the person you were meant to find. Before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and share the video with your friends and family. Thank you for listening. Wherever you are, may love find you in unexpected places. From my voice to your heart, goodbye for now.